and Dan's building really what I think is of the first real media company on Snapchat as a platform. Much like, think about BuzzFeed in many ways building themselves on Facebook, et cetera. But, so the company's called Naritiv. So talk about how you got started. And I think it's really interesting when you think about it from an entrepreneur perspective that, and I've known Dan for a little while, but you were actually doing something entirely different.
Yeah.
So talk about the journey and how you got here.
Yeah, so we were a network focused on YouTube, helping creators kind of better monetize superfans, connect with superfans, and really kind of understand their audience a bit better. We went into a Disney accelerator program that Techstars put on with them, and really kind of started to see a lot of our creators using Snapchat every day. You know, it required less production, it required less time, it required less thought. It was just a very free-flowing medium that they saw as important. At the same time, Disney was thinking about it. They were looking at mobile-first platforms. And YouTube was getting really crowded, as everyone in this room, I'm sure, knows. And so we really turned our attention to Snapchat and said, this is a platform built on mobile that kind of represents a lot of what we think of the future of content, which is less comments, more free-flowing. It's here today, it's gone tomorrow, and that was kind of what we wanted to focus on.
Yeah, so talk about how you started in Snapchat. 'Cause I think initially when you were coming out of Techstars, they said, oh, it's the first MCN for Snapchat. And so I was thinking it'd be kind of like, Maker Studios for Snapchat, or where you end up bringing in affiliates and you run them, and I thought, that's a really good idea. I don't know how it's gonna work in practice. But you sort of morphed a little bit from there also, so it's not so much that. Tell me about where you are and what the vision is now.
Yeah, I mean, we just started to look at the fact that we could create amazing content really inexpensively. The same way there were platforms that came onto Facebook and they said, this is a great place to build a brand, to build kind of a reach. We really looked at Snapchat and said, this is a great place to build brands, to build reach, and to build an audience. And so we kind of took our theory of what was working on Snapchat, and we continue to work with major brands, work with big creators, but really focus on how do we create content that we can own that speaks to the audiences, that uses the right creators in the best way possible.
How do you own content that goes away after 24 hours?
So you own the content, you can save the content. So we're just saving all the content and owning it and able to distribute it on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, and getting really good at how do we parse it together, what should go where. We would never take everything and put it on another platform, but we would take highlights the same way, you see an Instagram post making it onto Facebook. We want to take the highlights of what's happening on Snapchat and move it to other platforms.
Yeah, people have done this with Vine, for example, very successfully on
Exactly.
YouTube, where you see Vine strung together.
Yeah, it's got Vine stars very successful from that.
I talked about this earlier today. The sort of thing for me at VidCon that I sort of walked away with is these are all different video formats, and Snapchat in many ways is a new format where it's just goes away in 24 hours. It's like short little 9 seconds or less things strung together. You could storyboard. Talk about how you tell stories on Snapchat and how it's different from telling stories on some of these other platforms.
Yeah, I mean, the way we look at Snapchat is it's very free-flowing. It doesn't require production. The more production you have, the less genuine it looks.
Right.
So it's really like, you can think about it going to an NBA game. You would pick maybe your best picture and put that on Instagram. But Snapchat is really, where am I going to eat? Who am I going with? It's telling the story in a more comprehensive and free-flowing way, because that tomorrow, you ordering food at a restaurant isn't going to represent you on your account because it's gone.
Right.
So I think the fact that it goes away, there's no comments, and it's so there's such an authentic nature to it, allows for a very different type of content creation.
Yeah, I mean, the thing and I started using Snapchat and playing around with it earlier this year just to understand the platform. And at first, as a longtime content creator, I was like, oh my God, my content's going to be gone in 24 hours. I make the best stuff in the world. I can't live with that. And then I realized, I was like, you know what? Snapchat, in many ways, I find this, I don't know if you find this, but it is what we've always strived to build in a media brand, which is something that makes people come back every day because they have to.
Yeah.
I want to addict people to my content so much they come back every day, but when it lives forever, it's like, yeah, I'll get to it tomorrow.
Yeah.
But if it's gone in 24 hours,
yeah.
Right? I mean, how does that change the way the creators approach the platform?
Yeah, I think they create it, you see Viners doing maybe 1 Vine a week or a few Vines a week. They're doing, 17 to 20 snaps in a day.
Yeah.
So it affects it because you're just making more of it. And so, we try to take the best from it and distribute it in other places, but really it's a place that you can be more comfortable sharing and be more comfortable kind of making more content.
Yep. How many people are on Snapchat? Use it regularly? Cool, good group. So, those of you who aren't, you snap and connect with people, but there's also My Story, where you can create stuff and people subscribe to you and all that. But I know they've been rolling out local stories, so that they're pulling stuff together and they curate around events. So there's curating the Iowa State Fair and a bunch of others. When you look at creating content, when you and your creators create content, do you distinguish between creating for My Story versus creating for local versus creating for these events? Do you send people to events to start snapping so that they're part of those events? How do you think about that and programming for those?
Us, really, our audience is the creator's audience or the channel's audience. So sometimes those two things combine, which is great because it gives them exposure. It gives whatever brand or publisher we're working with exposure. But it's not, we just kind of think about creating the best content, and sometimes that ends up on its way to one of those other places.
Yeah. So really, you're not focusing on those sort of curated events that they're pulling together. It's like, we're going to make great content if it shows up also.
Not yet. So I think really for us, the focus is just make great content. A lot of the times that ends up on one of those places.
Right.
But not yet.
Yeah, I'm going to pull up Snapchat right now just because I want to see what I looked at it yesterday, but I look at it today, what their sort of events are. And one of them was the Iowa State Fair. By the way, you're all on Snapchat now. We're going to do a quick snap here. So, yeah, this is the AList Summit, and we are talking about Snapchat and narrative there. Yep, and so I'm just going to, sorry, I lost all my blue cards. I'm just going to go, boom. We're going to put that on My Story, and they don't have my local story today, but I'm just going to say, yep, great. Now, they're live, San Francisco, LA, Perth, and the Iowa State Fair. So you wouldn't just send people to the Iowa State Fair, hoping they get on,
probably
right?
should.
Yeah, down the road, right? Send everybody to Iowa.
But yeah, I mean, they definitely have different focuses for some of them. Like Iowa State Fair, they're showing
it's all the
different.
Clintons
It's all
stuff,
the
right?
it's all the candidates. But it's definitely worth trying. If you have the best snaps in that city on that day, you'll make it on.
Well, talk about sort of influence. We heard Michelle Phan talking about influencers versus creators and how creators are always pushing the envelope and influencers kind of do the same thing. I don't know. How do you see influencers or creators developing on the Snapchat platform? Is it different from some of the other online video platforms? Are there people who work across multiple platforms? Or you think there are people who are just so good at Snapchat that are just going to develop there?
Yeah, I mean, I think Snapchat, because there's such a low barrier to entry, has kind of proven itself to be a place where you can be a creator and be really innovative without having to spend a lot of time or spend money on production. And so I think there's definitely YouTubers and Viners and Instagrammers and whatever else that make their way over, and they're great at it. But we do have a large portion of our creator base that are just on Snapchat, and it's because it's just so easy to be on Snapchat. And if your life's interesting and you're pretty good at holding up a camera to it, then you're going to be good on Snapchat. So that's kind of how we think about it, is just it democratizes content creation in a new way. And so, definitely a lot of great creators that wouldn't be on Vine or Instagram or YouTube.
Right. Yeah, I saw even Hank Green, who runs VidCon and the Vlogbrothers. He's most excited about Snapchat these days. He's having tons of fun with it. And I get it, because you don't really have to plan it out. I mean, you can plan it out, but it's a really interesting way to connect.
Yeah.
So the top Snapchatters, how many followers do some of the top Snapchatters have? What is the numbers there?
Yeah, I mean, in our network, we have creators that are seeing anywhere between 10,000 to close to 1 million views per snap. So on a given day, they can see a tremendous amount of views. It's just constant creation, and so we're definitely seeing the numbers creep up, and it's still word of mouth. There's no discovery.
Right.
But it's kind of fun to find new people, follow them, see their story, and people like the fact that it's a little hidden.
Yeah. What do you see as the demographics of Snapchat, just to be clear about sort of who's going up there to watch this stuff?
I mean, it's still, from what we see, and we don't know kind of the overall demographics, from what we see, it's still really young. A lot of college students. I think their kind of report is 17 to 34. We see a lot of 17 to 24 as kind of the sweet spot, and a little female skewing. But that's just kind of from our campaigns, not from Snapchat in general.
Well, my experience with my son who's 16 is that there's a heck of a lot of people that 13 to 17 there as well.
Definitely, from what we see, skews pretty young.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. So I want to talk a little bit about how brands are using Snapchat and some success stories that you've seen and things that work and things that don't.
Yeah.
But before we do that, we've got a little video about 30 seconds of something you did with.
Yeah,
One
so
intro
this is
for
with
a minute?
ABC Family. We work with a lot of publishers. They come to us and say, kind of, how do we tell stories around our content that kind of complement what we're doing? We know that when Pretty Little Liars is on TV, our fans are all snapping anyways. So why not create content that complements it? We can weave brands into it. Why not control the conversation instead of having them scattered around? So this is a little video, or a little portion of a video, of what we worked on with ABC Family for a number of their shows. Pretty Little Liars, Becoming Us, and Stitchers. Pretty Little Liars is now above 1 million followers. And really for us, it was about creating a voice for the channel.
Okay, so let's take a look, couple seconds of it.
Hey guys, it's me again, Snapchat artist M. Platko, and I am getting excited for the winter premiere of Pretty Little Liars, which is less than an hour away.
Welcome to the Becoming Us Snapchat.
I'm Snapchatter Brandon Harvey, and I am so excited to watch the premiere of Stitchers tonight with Sean Durst. So much so that I got this totally real popcorn to totally share for Brandon.
Yeah, like we were totally in the same place, like watching Stitchers, sharing the same popcorn. Totally.
Make sure to tweet pictures of yourself following my instructions.
So was that all one story?
No.
No.
So those were little highlights from different
other
parts of the
people doing it.
season, and those were three of our creators that we work with, all managing different channels for ABC Family, creating content for them every week, really focused on, how do they match the show, how do they, talk about what happened last week, talk about what's happening this week, talk about what might happen, next week.
So let's think about it from the brand perspective. For ABC Family, their goal, I assume, is to drive tune-in, right?
Yeah, their goal is to get as much engagement while the show is airing as possible.
So would you put things out before the show went up to get people to watch? Would you put things out during the show to get the engagement going?
All of it.
All
So
of it?
we manage, the entire channel for them. We we create programming when the show is not, in season. We create it when it is in season, and we, want to drive people to watch the show, and then, grab super fans, but grab also new followers. So definitely a lot of before, and then, a lot of during.
So you would put these Snapchatters up on their channel,
Exactly.
as well as their own channel, right?
Exactly.
And so you said there are about 1 million followers, subscribers. What's the right term there?
So yeah, followers,
Followers?
subscribers.
Okay. All right, can
I
use
don't
either
know.
one.
Yeah.
So I remember talking to you a few months ago, and you were telling me about this, and you said the open rates were incredible. What's the open rate when you put
Yeah, I
something
mean,
like that on?
we see open rates, 60% and up. So it really, I think because of the urgency, because
Yeah.
it still feels like they're your friends. It
Right.
still feels like you've added them, you've found someone new, whether it's a show or a retailer, and you want to open everything that they show, everything that they're putting up. So it's been really amazing to see up to 90% open rates.
90%. Is anybody else floored by that number? I mean, I know, the YouTube channels we built, Revision 3, and some of the others I've seen, if 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 5 of your subscribers actually watch, you're doing something right?
Yeah.
That's a 10%, maybe a 20% open rate. Email open rates, terrible.
Yeah.
60 to 90%. I just
Yeah.
think there's something going on there.
Yeah.
Something's definitely going on up there. So when you think about other companies that have built, that you're following the footsteps of, who do you look up to, and are you trying to pattern yourself against maybe a BuzzFeed or a Vice or something else, or are you trying to sort of go down a brand new path? Like, how do you think about that?
Yeah, I think we look at platforms like that have built brands on on channels that they saw as the most effective at their time. So BuzzFeed did a great job on Facebook, and now they have a brand that can move to Snapchat, Instagram, wherever it might go. So companies like that to us are really exciting, and ones that we look up to, because they build brands for themselves that can translate
Right.
elsewhere.
And back to the brands. Who else is doing a good job on Snapchat? I mean, I'm sure you look around a lot of what other people are doing. Who's doing a good job? And give an example or two of maybe stuff that you might have done or something that somebody else might have done that you look at and say, wow, that's good.
Yeah, I mean, ABC Family, honestly, they've been great at social, just in general. So, they've been able to speak to an audience through Twitter, through Instagram, through YouTube. They're one of the most, tweeted about TV shows for Pretty Little Liars. So they've been an amazing partner for us to say, let's look at this new platform. Our fans are there. Let's get there before anyone else. And, they've been awesome at kind of creating new ways to learn about who to follow and move to other shows and use their most social show to drive to others. So they've been a great partner. When we look at other brands that are on it, Taco Bell's been doing a great job. They're usually first movers, and they've been really exciting in the space. And we've done some really great stuff with Marriott, who's obviously creating content digitally in a lot of ways, sending creators around the world.
So talk about what works for a brand on Snapchat. I mean, you're not just going to say, well, I've got my 15-second creative. I'm going to cut it up into 2 7-seconds and run it out on my channel, and that'll be great, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't work, right?
No, it really has to be a story. So it has to be, it can't just be day of. It has to be like, so if you have a new product coming out, how do you build excitement for it with stories? How do you tell a story leading up to it? And then how do you tell a story that day? And so the best creative that we see is really focused on telling a story over time versus trying to do as much as you can on one day.
So if you had a lot of brands here and agency folks, you're talking to them, should they build their own channel on Snapchat? Should they find influencers to work with? Should they do a combination? What's the goal here?
Yeah, well, I mean, hopefully for us, the goal is to spend a lot of time and a lot of energy on Snapchat. We think it's really important in that when you look back in a year, you're going to say, I'm happy that I started building last year instead of this year.
Yep.
I think building a channel is really important because if you're going to spend any time or effort there, you should build something that you can tap back into.
Right.
Instead of just like Instagram, you can save it and maybe spend a little money here and a little money there. You really have to kind of create a tone and a voice. For a movie studio, it's less about creating a channel. It's more about how do we just get a lot of attention really in a really innovative way as quickly as possible. Yep. So it really just depends on kind of what the goal is.
Depends on what the goal is, right? Exactly. So, but for Marriott, you would recommend Marriott should have their own channel. They should put stuff in and then bring influencers in and out, but also have the influencers or the creators on their own channel interact with the brand.
Exactly, and then also
ways.
Guide the channel. And what we do is we guide the channel whether there's creators on it or not.
Right.
So say they have staff in their hotels. We didn't do this, but the idea being, how do you create a voice between your kind of big events or between your big spends that keep people interested and engaged?
What's an example of something that you tried that didn't work or something that somebody else did and you're like, oh man, I'm not going to do that again?
Yeah, I think a lot of brands want to treat it like another platform like YouTube or like Instagram. And I think the brands that we've worked with that have just wanted to produce TV, movie content and put it on Snapchat have seen that doesn't resonate with people. It's not the way Snapchat's meant to be used in that section, at least. And thinking about it from a more organic, standpoint is more effective.
Right. Yeah. So even more organic than YouTube and things like that, right?
Exactly.
A lot of the lessons that we learned on these other platforms, it sounds like you've got to learn them, and it's even more important on this platform.
Yeah. Exactly.
What about data? How do you know? How do you get? Because Snapchat seems to be a fairly opaque platform.
Yeah.
How do you know what people are watching and who's watching and what those demographics are, and how do you report back to a brand about their success?
Yeah, I mean, it depends what the success, what's success. So is it brand building? Is it getting as many people to view it as possible? Which, as a user, you can track and manage, and we help make that a lot easier. Or is it, taking a screenshot and sending people to use a coupon code somewhere? So it really depends on kind of what success is. And what our kind of secret sauce is to help brands get better at it and to achieve their goals, whatever they may be.
Right. So, but you can give them, just say, this is how many people watch, this is what happened, these are our open rates.
We can give them in a more sophisticated way what they already can see. So we just kind of take what they can see and make it more make it smarter over time.
Is that some of your secret sauce that
Yeah,
you guys have built?
exactly.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Are there any questions out here? We have a question right here. Yes, sir. You got a microphone right behind you.
Hey, how's it going? Kevin with Digital LA.
Hey.
Great talk. Thanks. How should brands sit like a film or TV studio or a beauty company? How should they use Snapchat?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really just depends on whether it's a long-term or short-term strategy. So for a movie studio, we'll a lot of the time say, what's your week looking at? Like, okay, so the trailer release, we need to do a bunch of stories around. The week of release, we need to do a bunch of stories around. And we'll tap into creators on their own channels with their own distribution, and we'll say, how do you tell the story of being excited for the movie? That's really what it comes down to. So we'll put creators on it that we see. Maybe if it's a franchise that they're familiar with, that have talked about it, that have engaged with it, that would be excited for it. That's kind of from a movie perspective. It's shorter term. It's little spurts, unless it's a franchise that's going to be around over a long period of time. And for a brand, we really see it as build a channel and tell your story on that channel, and really be think about it over a longer period of time, because it's going to be important to have that audience there more so in a year versus right now.
How do you plan out content for Snapchat, given the way that it's developed and put up? And are you storyboarding stuff out and thinking about what each of the individual snaps will be over the course of a day, and then executing them, or is it a little bit more like we're just going to see what happens?
It's definitely storyboarded. We're definitely saying, we want every piece planned out. We want every snap kind of, we want it to feel, look, and still be very natural.
Yep.
But we want there to be, a frame around it, so it's not just kind of, free flowing and random.
Right. And so when you do something in a day, let's say for pick a client, but how many snaps will you plan out over the course of 24 hours? And then do you do them all at once, or do you do a group here, a group here, a group here, a group? Talk about the timing of that.
Yeah,
content.
I mean, usually our stories are between 15 and 20 snaps.
Mm-hmm.
They're a mix between, videos and images. We want to give images, for instance, because we want people to be able to take a screenshot and share it.
Right.
So that's one of the things we look at when we're working with brands is what's the mix between videos and images. Videos are great, but they're less shareable. They're clunkier to put on Twitter or Instagram. So for us, it's throughout a day, 15 to 20 snaps, videos, images, 4 to 7 seconds.
Is there a time that Snapchat, do you look out and say, well, the best time to post these snaps is at 9 a.m. and 6 p.m.? Is there certain
Yeah, I mean,
flows
if you
of
look at the
time?
young the demographic that's young on the platform, it's when they're coming out of school.
Right.
It's
Yep.
in the summer it's a little more random, but you can just kind of follow where a
Yeah.
younger demo is spending their time and when.
Other questions? Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say.
So the question, by the way, for those who didn't hear it, is Facebook's a couple posts a day, Twitter, et cetera. YouTube maybe a video a day. Are you saying that that a brand should be doing 20 snaps a day to keep their channel alive?
No. So that amount is more for a creator rather than a brand. I would say when a brand posts a story, which we have brands that do it once a week, 3 or 4 times a week, doesn't need to be every day. When they post a story, in order to tell a comprehensive story that makes sense from front to back, that would be between 15 to 20 snaps, but that doesn't need to be every day.
So you can keep an audience engaged on Snapchat by just doing something weekly.
Exactly.
Or just doing something a couple times a week. We have a question over here as well. And so I think it's interesting because we all learned with Facebook and YouTube, when's the right time to post? How many posts do we do? How do we not fatigue the audience? How do we build people? So it's that learning I think is really interesting on Snapchat. Question over there.
What about timing? When you release this content, you want to make it feel organic and natural, but at the same time, you want to have it scheduled. So as far as timing, how do you decide when is the right time to do it? And when you do figure that out, do you stay within that same time frame, or do you vary each campaign?
It really just depends on kind of what the initiative is. If you're at an event and that's where you want to, really tell your story from, then you do it over the series of an event. If it's something more random, like going to your different shops and meeting employees or whatever it might be, then you can kind of space it out throughout a day. But we really look at it like keep the story moving, really have this is the start, almost, you can literally write it out. This is the beginning, this is the middle, this is the end. And really, if you're kind of telling that over a day, it really just depends on kind of what the initiative is. But making sure that that people are excited for the whole day is important.
Yeah, I found it really illustrative for myself when I was learning about video and television and advertising and YouTube to actually storyboard chart out commercials and things like that. So I remember doing that and I was like, oh, that's how they're doing it. I think, as you learn about Snapchat, it's not a bad idea to go to some people who are doing it really well and really storyboard out what they're doing. So give me 2 or 3 channels people should follow on Snapchat where you should learn from them and really take a look at what they're doing and kind of storyboard it out so you get a sense of what works.
All right, well, I'll give one of ours and then one of
Okay.
one that we just really think is a great channel. So I mean, Taco Bell is a good one. They tell their brand story in a really interesting way. I think it's just at Taco Bell.
Yep, Taco
and then,
Bell.
you know, for more media brands, publishers, at PLL is the Pretty Little Liars
PLL,
account.
Pretty Little Liars, right?
And we do weekly content for them and really kind of help guide them through you know, telling an interesting story.
All right, so in 15 seconds, what do you think the future of Snapchat looks like from a media perspective?
Yeah, I think, you know, to us, we think it's distributing, you know, it's disrupting traditional content in a new way that's kind of more democratized and free-flowing, and we're really excited about.
Cool. Dan Altmann, thank you very much. Thank you guys, too. Really appreciate it. Thanks, buddy.